welcome, everybody, to another great episode of Real Life Matters. And of course, I am your host, DBoss. And I just want to thank the people out there who have been laughing, doing their 15 minutes of more or laughing. And, remember that helps keeps your endorphins out of your body. It releases those bad endorphins coming out from yourself. It also brings down blood pressure. It also tones your abs. Doesn't mean you're not going to do it. It heals. And the laughing is also free. It's good for your soul. So, just to start your day is good. And it's available for all ages. So, not just one age group. So y'all can just get together. Don't say you don't have anybody that you can do this with or anything like that. You can do it with anybody. If you don't have anybody, just put on something funny, just phone somebody or just have somebody over and you guys can just start laughing. And if you have a more serious job, well, you need to go for 30 minutes. I suggest. Okay. So, I'm just encouraging good health, good things, but thanks for the ones that are doing it. I'm getting a lot of good response from that. So the ones that have been taking part in it also. So today I'm just going to show you a brief thing with Enrich Resort City. If anybody wants to get involved in Enrich Resort City, anyway, investment size, it's a little of $5,000 USD to get involved. It's a smart city. It's going to be in Limbe, Cameroon, and it's going to be something that's going to be good for everybody in the long run. So we'll just kind of have a brief moment and I'll be right back with our special guest. Well, thank you for that in Enrich Resort City, Limbe, Cameroon. So anybody that wants to have a home away from home, they can do that. And you could just contact myself and just mention that you saw it here at Real Life Matters. But today we have someone that's been here before and she's come back because she's written something else. So she's going to be here and tell us all about it. And with no further ado, I introduce to you Victoria West.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Right. I see you get the memo. You're laughing, so I guess you do your little bit of laughing every day.
A little bit, yes. I'm trying.
Well, it works. It works.
It does.
So you feel better. It doesn't matter, you're by yourself or anything. It's okay. So here at Real Life Matters, we like to know where your background and where you come from, Victoria. So maybe people who are not familiar with you, can you just tell them where you come from? What's your culture?
My culture is Romanian, and I moved from Romania to Canada in 2006, so it's been 18 years for me here in Canada. I actually was born in Moldova, and I spent the first 18 years of my life in Moldova, and then I moved to Romania. And I lived in Romania for another 10 years. And during that time, I graduated from university, from a Romanian university. And also I worked for a little bit, for a few years in Romania. Meanwhile, I also met the man who would become my husband. We got married. And then in 2006, we came together to Canada. So we started our life here just like anyone else from all over the world who comes here. We had our first job, then we started building our career. Then our son was born in 2009. And
See, you didn't mention that. You didn't mention that last time.
well, here is another chance for me to mention it now. My son was born in 2009, and I had a year of maternity leave. And during that maternity leave, this is when I started writing. And first, I started writing about fashion because I was passionate about fashion. And I
Yes.
started writing essays about mostly about fashion in Toronto. I started doing interviews with celebrities, with the fashion personalities, writing essays, book reviews, writing about a range of other topics such as lifestyle, travel, books, and some other topics. And I did write about fashion in Toronto for 10 years, up until
Wow.
2020. So between 2010 and 2020, I wrote about fashion. Meanwhile, I also published my first book about fashion in 2013. It's called Bits of Fashion. I'll just show it to you briefly
Yes.
because it's not our topic of conversation
It's
today,
okay.
but just to show it. So my first book, Bits of Fashion, it's a collection of fashion essays and interviews, and I
Okay.
published it in 2013. After that, I continued writing about fashion on a number of online platforms, as well as some print magazines, up until 2020 when COVID started. And you remember what
Yes.
then.
We all.
Everything shut down, everything closed down, including the fashion scene in Toronto. So I no longer wrote about fashion during COVID, or not so much, I would say. And this is when I focused on poetry. This is when I turned my attention to poetry. In 2020, I started writing poetry as a reaction to the global pandemic. We were
Okay.
all isolated, and I also felt isolated, and I started reflecting about what's happening to us, to humanity, to our world, to our planet. And I started writing about fashion. I started writing poetry. My apologies. Um,
Well, it's different because poetry and is different from what you were doing before, correct?
It's true. It's true. It felt very different because our life turned upside down, and it was different for all of that, for all of us. So I even remember that among the first poems that I started writing in 2020, amongst not necessarily the very first ones, but among the first, were inspired by the COVID-related events.
Okay.
And then I decided shortly after I wrote my first poems, I decided that I actually would like to write a book of poetry. So I started working on it, and this is when I published my first collection of poetry later on in 2021, which we talked about last time
Yeah,
when
so
we
you can
met.
show the book. You have the book?
And I also would like to show again briefly. I'll show the
Yes.
book. This is my first collection of
Wow.
poetry and my second book. So, Sunset in Toronto. It took me about a year to write it. I started it.
1 year to write this book,
That's
Sunset
right.
and.
Yes, 1 year
Wow.
to write it, and I published it in the fall of 2021, October 2021. This is when it came
Okay.
out. So after the release date, I made an effort to promote it. I worked a little bit on promoting the book. I wanted to let the world know about my new collection of poetry. So I had a few interviews, a few um,
I did previously.
articles written about the poetry collection, some media coverage following after the release. And this is also when you and I met and we had that first interview about the book, about
Yes.
it in Toronto. But meanwhile, even though at that time, and we're talking about, excuse me, we're talking about late 2021, early 2022. At that time, I was making the effort to promote the book, and my main focus was on promoting the book Sunset in Toronto. But in the same time, I kept writing poems. So I didn't stop just because I published the book. I continued writing poems. And this is where my second collection of poetry comes in. I'll show it to you now.
Yes.
So this is my most recent collection of poetry, the second book of poetry,
Despair.
and my third book overall. It's called Despair and Hope.
And what did you name it? Despair and Hope.
Now, the reason why I named it like that is because this book is a little bit different from my previous collection of poetry. It's a reflection of the world that we now live in, specifically post-pandemic. So most of the poems that are included in this book were
Okay.
written in 2022, 2023, and that's right after the pandemic. And as I was
Wow.
writing these poems, it was essentially my reflection on the world, what's happening with us now that we are out of the pandemic and all the changes that we go through as society, as humanity, and everything that happens to us at individual level, but also at the level of collective society. So the poems are the reflection of our world and how I perceived it right after the pandemic and following the years post-pandemic, the post-pandemic struggles of humanity and everything that happened to us during these past few years, the war in Ukraine and the culture world and all of that happened to us in the years following the pandemic. And you asked me about the title, why it is Despair and Hope, and
Yes.
that's because I didn't want it to be a totally negative book, and I didn't want the readers to perceive it
Something.
as the darkest book that could, or the darkest feelings that we could have emerging the pandemic. So I wanted it to be an antithesis. So that's why Despair and Hope. On the other, on one hand, we had our dark moments during the pandemic and post-pandemic, but on the other hand, I choose to nurture hope, and I want to see hope ahead of us. And I think that we should strive to nurture hope and to keep as something to hold on. So this is what's the book all about: despair and hope. On
And
one,
how long did you take to write this one?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
How long did it take you to write this one?
It took me close to 2 years. So for the most
Woo!
part, I wrote it in 2022 and 2023.
Okay.
So the last few poems were written probably toward the end of 2023. So I would say between 1 year and a half and 2 years.
Okay.
And that's because I kept rewriting some of the poems. I kept adding, removing. So it wasn't, I don't really have a carved in stone date when I said, like, this is it,
Okay.
and no longer add anything to it. I actually kept adding a little bit. So that's why I'm saying that roughly it took me close to 2 years to write it. So I was
Okay.
done with the manuscript like in late 2023, and then I spent a few more months on proofreading, editing, putting the book together, choosing the order of the poems in the book, and putting everything together. And then in May this year, in 2024, it was published, and now it is ready
It's
to.
ready to buy. All
Yes.
right. So, do you have these books that are they in your own language too, Romanian or
No,
the
for
audio?
now they are not,
Okay.
only in English. And I had to be honest, I haven't tried to translate my own poetry yet into Romanian, but
Okay.
maybe one day I will. I
Yes.
also write some of the poems
Or
in
you could do it an
Romanian.
audible, an audible one. You don't have to rewrite it.
That would be an option, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And well, in terms of Romanian language, so far I only wrote a few poems in the Romanian language, which I shared on some of my social media platforms. And in the future, I actually do envision myself. I do see myself writing and publishing a book in Romanian language, a book of poetry. It's going to be a little bit
It's
down
a
the
little
road
more
in the
challenging.
future, but not for now. So for now, I tend to write mostly in English, and I publish my books in English.
All right. All right. Are there any shout outs that you want to give to your people?
Yes, of course. So my
And you
family
can also say a shout out in your own language if you like.
um, mulțumesc pentru support, and that's thank you for your support, and that's a thank you to my family and friends who read my books and who appreciate my writing. So I have my circle of friends. They as soon as they hear about a new book from mine, they immediately want to read it, to have it, and I'm grateful for their support. Um, and a big shout out to my family as well, who are a big support system for me, and they're always there for me. So it's for them as well.
Okay. All right. And you said something in your own language before earlier, right?
Yes,
Ah,
it means I said mulțumesc pentru support, which means
oh,
thank you for
okay.
your support.
Okay. All right. So where can people find your books, Victoria?
It's available on Amazon, on all Amazon sites around the world where Amazon is operating. And for us in Canada, Amazon.ca, for American readers, Amazon.com. And it's easy to find. Just type in the search box Victoria West, Despair and Hope, or specifically in books or in Kindle store, Victoria West, Despair and Hope. The book
Okay.
is available both print and Kindle, and it's part of the Kindle Unlimited. So anyone who has Kindle Unlimited can read it for free. And yes, mainly on Amazon. A few other retail around the world, but the best way is to find it on Amazon.
Okay. All right. And if they want to keep up with you on your social medias, where can they find you?
So my website is victoriawest.net, and I have a dedicated page there where all my social media are aggregated together, and they can see everywhere I am active. For the most part, I am active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is Victoria West and Books with underscore between the words.
Okay.
So this is where I am active the most. I'm also active on a few other platforms, but my favorite is Instagram. So
Instagram. It's true. So you guys go follow her. She's a great poet, poet. She writes a lot of poetry. You guys can get not only the book that she has today, but you can get all her other past books and read them. I encourage you, buy them, go and see what it's about and give feedback, people. Say on her what you like about it, what the parts of the book that you like about it, because that's very important. So
thank you.
Victoria. So Victoria, it's been a pleasure. You came back. I even welcome. I thank you for coming back. She's part of our Real Life Matters family. When you come back again, and she'll be back when she has another one that she's probably working on.
Yes, that's for sure. Next year, my
Next
next book. I hope to be next year. Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, I do want to thank the viewers tonight for tuning in here with Victoria West. She's a poet, an author. She does all different things there. So, good night, everybody, and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.